television event.
In the world, we're a continent of extraordinary promise, alive with creativity, innovation, and a deep cultural heritage that has shaped humanity itself. Yet, on the other hand, we continue to grapple with weak institutions, infrastructure deficits, widespread unemployment, poverty, and recurrent governance failures that have constrained our progress. This is the paradox of our age. How can a continent so richly blessed remain so constrained? How can such abundance coexist with scarcity? Such youthful energy be stifled by joblessness. Such sovereignty be undermined by fragility. This tension defines Africa's present moment, a moment of both urgency and immense possibility. At the heart of this paradox lies the decisive factor of leadership. Leadership remains the fulcrum upon which the destinies of nations turn. It determines whether our vast resources become a blessing or a curse, whether our diversity becomes strength or division, whether our challenges become stumbling blocks or stepping stones. When leadership is visionary, accountable, and courageous, even the most daunting obstacles can be transformed into opportunities. But leadership must also create the enabling environment for transformation by providing the critical infrastructure that attracts investment, drives productivity, and sustains growth. At present, the level of investment in Africa remains minimal precisely because of infrastructural decay and policy inconsistency. Roads, railways, and digital connectivity are the arteries through which development flows. Without them, the economy cannot freely breathe. It is to be deeply regretted that Africa continues to export raw materials and import finished goods, a cycle that perpetuates dependency and stifles industrial growth. This situation is unhealthy for sustainable development, which has eluded the continent for far too long. Africa's future will be written by the kind of leadership we nurture today. Leadership that not only dreams, but dares, not only commands, but serves, not only governs, but transforms. Read that leadership in the 20th century. To Africa's future, we must first rebuild leadership itself. The time has come to move beyond transactional leadership, the kind driven by personal gain, patronage, and short-term calculations. To embrace transformative leadership rooted in vision, courage, service, and accountability. Leadership must not exploit, empower. It must not rule, but serve. It must not merely transact, but transform. Many commentators agree that the greatest impediment to Africa's progress and the chronic ailment development for decades is the plague of poor and mediocre leadership. Across the continent today, both in military and civilian dispensations, leaders have often emerged through self-serving conspiracies that bear little or no relation to national interest or development. Consequently, many African nations have been saddled with leaders unprepared for the enormity of leadership. The result is a tragic pattern of groping in the dark, with nations endlessly experimenting with the fundamentals of development, basic infrastructure, primary health care, functional economies, efficient democratic and judicial systems, and credible institutions. The 21st century calls for a new kind of African leaders who are prepared, principled, and passionate. Leaders who embody vision, and resilience. Leaders who believe it has boundless possibilities and act decisively to unlock them. They must be bold enough to make difficult but necessary decisions. Must be bold enough to make difficult but necessary decisions. Proactive enough to anticipate the future and committed enough to build systems that prioritize excellence over mediocrity, performance over politics. The leadership that Africa desires in the 21st century is one that's about caring rather than controlling. A true leader must see himself as a servant, humbled by the weight of responsibility he carries for the welfare of the people. Africa is in urgent need of servant leaders, leaders who do not see themselves as bosses, but as mentors, genuinely committed to the building of communities and of upliftment of people. Harry Gordon Selfridge and John C. Maxwell captured this distinction beautifully. I quote, "A boss drives his team. A leader guides them. A boss relies on authority. A leader relies on trust and goodwill. A boss inspires fear. A leader inspires enthusiasm. A boss, I. A leader says, we. A boss demands punctuality. A leader is early to lead by example. A boss blames when things go wrong. A leader fixes the problem. A boss knows the path. A leader walks it with the team. A boss says, go. A leader rallies his people with, let's go together. True leadership then is not about position or power, but about inspiring, serving, and joining with those you lead. This is the kind of leadership Africa must embrace if we are to move from stagnation to transformation. Leadership is not an abstract skill. It is a living reality where both vision meets purposeful action. Here in Abuja, we have witnessed how infrastructural renewal, anchored on political will and strategic investment, can turn aspiration into achievement. Roads that were once impassable are now open. Bridges connect communities. Public spaces, once abandoned, now thrive with life, enterprise, and hope. These are not mere structures of concrete and steel. They are symbols of what is possible when leadership dares to dream and to deliver. President Tinubu's commitment to difficult but necessary reforms further reminds us that leadership is ultimately about sacrifice for the greater good. For the first day of his presidency, Tinubu demonstrated courage by confronting one of Nigeria's most challenges, the removal of the fuel subsidy. Let me briefly, when I was talking about leadership, I said you must take decisions, very difficult decisions you are being confronted with about leadership. When a leader cannot take decisions at challenging times, then that is not leadership. All of us are aware today, so many states can say we have resources to carry out development. We have resources to provide infrastructure. We are no longer running around banks. We are not looking for how banks will give us money. So much money is now in the hands of states. But what is important, what you use the money to is a different thing. But leadership has been provided by taking a decision that has made this money to be available to the various states. What the states do with FCT is not the concern of those that leadership is given to. For me, giving me the responsibility as the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, I have that political will without any apologies to anybody to make sure Abuja competes with other cities of the world. I have taken decisions that so many people thought that why will he do this? Can he stand this? 3 days ago, I was informed that the police was constructing houses under the high tension, and the development control went there to say, no, you cannot do this. The police arrested them. And I called the DIG operation. You arrested them. I will go there by myself, and I will not allow it to happen. And I went there. I saw the high tension. And I said, look, we must say that you cannot. Under my leadership, this will not be allowed. And I told the development control, bring down the buildings. Heaven will not fall. Heaven will be at rest. As I speak to you, heaven is at rest. That is leadership. It doesn't matter who is involved. It's leadership. People come to us, you know that things are wrong. What you are doing is wrong. It has nothing to do with the political party you belong to. It has nothing to do with Jeff. No. People talk about criminals taking over the entire Abuja. It's okay. We'll go and locate them. We'll identify where they are. And we went. And we say, oh, these are shanties. We will not allow these shanties in the city. Bring them down. I saw on television so many people carrying placards. Wicked is this, wicked is that. Yes, that's leadership. That's leadership. Somebody has to take decision. And I have taken the decision. You are not there to satisfy a particular person. Leadership is about the people. It's about the people. Oh, somebody converse in area. They say, is a former chief of this, a former this of this. I said, fine. Who approved this? Nobody. Sir, let's tread with caution. I said, what caution? He said, oh, the man is this former chief of the. I said, yes, he's former. The law does not know that about former or present. The law must take its. I said, take them away. Of course, in the next few hours, phone calls everywhere. I didn't change. That's leadership. That is leadership. You may not be right, but you must take a decision. And that's what this present government is doing. People forget where we were yesterday. The day, Mr. President, I don't know how many people will be in a position to take that decision. So bold, very difficult decision that requires that sacrifices must be made. A lot of us started crying. How can you remove fuel subsidy? How can you do this? The masses are suffering. We agree. But it is fraudulent. And so he took that decision. Within that short time, things appear that all heavens will go down. By the grace of God, that decision he took, very difficult decision, that made a lot of prices of fuel up, this up. But today things are stabilizing. Money have been put in state. When I was a governor, we never shared more than 500 billion naira in a month for the federation account. Never. I've never had more than 10-15 billion in a month. Today, states are sharing not less than 2 trillion every month. Why? Because of the removal of the fuel subsidy. Then now, as the leader of the FCT, as the leader of 38, as the leader of B, as the leader of 30C, it behoves on them, on us, to provide leadership. Leadership that's not transactional. Leadership that needs commitment. Leadership that provides infrastructure. 2 days ago, we're in a weird district. Contract was awarded to develop Weyi district 2009. 2009. 16 years ago. A contract to develop a district. 2009. And we're 2025. 16 years ago. And I asked you, where was the leadership to develop a district that has about 7 and something hectares of land, provide roads and the basic infrastructure for people to move in for residences and carry out their economic activities, commercial activities? No way. But today you have a leadership that says, look, we can't continue this way. We must have to fix it. It took that leadership 2 years to fix it. Today, everybody who's saying we are, or those one of you who have access to we, you can now see. A country like this, just to have ordinary, that's very common in all over the world. For train stations to operate became difficult. Millions of dollars. It requires a strong leadership, a transformation leadership, not leadership based on ethnicity, not leadership based on religion, but leadership that is focused, that's transformational. I remember when the Nigerian Bar Association had the annual general conference here in Port Harcourt, here in Abuja. I'm still used to so you have to pardon me. And the president said, City, I want to ride on the train to the airport. I want to. I'm not interested in land. I want to ride on that train. It didn't take us 1 year. That train is working operational. That is transformational leadership. That's leadership that's focused. That's what Mr. President has done. And here, Nigeria, in Africa, we're only talking about leadership based on where you come from. Leadership based on relationship. So Africa cannot talk about development. Africa cannot talk about progress if leadership is transactional, if leadership is based on relationship, if leadership is not transformational. Forget it. Forget it. And I believe, by the grace of God, Nigeria is going to see a new narrative. I know that a lot of us are not patient. Yes. But you forget that things have been so bad. So bad. There's no when somebody is sick. So, or a prophet calls you. Neither. It's different. So you are healed, go. It's different. This requires time. Taking tough decisions. And then it will take time before you begin to see results. But by the grace of God, the results are coming, trickling in. All we need to do is to be patient. Equally, transformative leadership, equality is his effort to decentralize governance and address the structural imbalance. I was talking about what the president was doing. So that it can flow. Today, this bold decision of Mr. President is beginning to yield results. States and local governments now receive higher revenues for development. The burden of debt accumulation is easy. The price of petrol is gradually aligning with market realities under sound regulatory oversight. Equally transformative is the present effort to decentralize governance and address the structural imbalance of over-centralization. Through the creation of zonal and regional commissions, President Tinubu is devolving development closer to the people, towards genuine federalism. In the area of security, his administration has invested in the training and retraining of the armed forces and approved the recruitment of forest guards nationwide to reclaim ungoverned spaces from bandits and terrorists. These and other strategic measures are to position Nigeria towards stability, productivity, and growth. Yet, it must be emphasized that no leader, however visionary or determined, can succeed without the support and cooperation of the people. No matter how strong, no matter how visionary, no matter how courageous a leader is, without the support of the people, that leadership qualities will never materialize. The burden and glory of national transformation must be shared. History teaches us that progress, that synergy between its leadership and followership. A leader who acted quickly and decisively, not shaken by challenges, and had his people backing him and believing in his vision. End of quote. If you can reimagine leadership across Africa in this same spirit, leadership that builds, not blames, that inspires, not divides, that empowers, not dominates, then no mountain will be too high, no challenge too great, and no dream too ambitious for our continent. The time for belief is here. The time for action is now. Together with visionary leadership and a committed citizenry, Africa can begin to realize the continent of its dreams. Africa stands today at the threshold of destiny, a continent rich in promise, yet still wrestling with the lingering weight of dependence. For too long, Africa has looked outward for solutions to problems that can only be solved from within. The time has come for Africa to come of age and rise beyond the rhetoric of aid and dependency, and to take deliberate, courageous decisions to chart its own path towards self-reliance, prosperity, and global relevance. Foreign aid, once embraced, is a bridge to development, has too often become a crutch that weakens resolve and distorts priorities. Development cannot be donated, it must be built. No nation or continent has ever achieved greatness through the benevolence of others. No nation, I repeat, no nation or continent has ever achieved greatness through the benevolence of others. America cannot donate development to you. Great Britain cannot donate. France cannot. All they do, don't think they want their own development. They give you ideas, but at the end of the day, will help their own country, not your own country. So you must on your own. If you wait for donation for development, it will not come. Mention one country that developed through donation. No way. Africa must now declare with conviction and clarity that it will no longer be defined by grants and conditionalities, but by ideas, innovation, and indigenous strength. Our future must be crafted not in the conference rooms of donor agencies. Our future, hear me well, our future must be crafted not in the conference rooms of donor agencies, but in the creative laboratories, farms, classrooms, and workshops of Africans determined to transform their continent. If leadership is the fulcrum of transformation, then investment is the engine that powers it forward. Leadership alone is not enough. Leadership must inspire investment, both domestic and foreign, that ignites growth, creates jobs, and builds resilience. Yet, investment in Africa must not remain abstract. It must be productive, inclusive, and transformative. It must prioritize infrastructure, education, innovation, agriculture, health, and the creative economy. Above all, it must empower women and youth, the beating heart of Africa's future. "70% of Africa's population is under the age of 30. This is not a statistic. It is a revolution waiting to happen. If we invest in our youth through education, digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and skills training, we will unleash the greatest demographic dividend in human history. Already, Africa's youth are pioneering fintech in Lagos and Nairobi, building creative hubs in Dakar and Accra, and revolutionizing agriculture in Kigali and Addis Ababa. Our responsibility as leaders is to remove barriers, provide platforms, and trust the brilliance of our people. The energy, creativity, and resilience of Africa's young population are not just assets, they are the very instruments of the continent's transformation. I've often argued that infrastructure is not merely about roads, bridges, or buildings. It's about opportunity, assets, and dignity. It's about connecting farmers to markets, children to schools, patients to hospitals, and innovators to investors. In Abuja, we are sought to reimagine infrastructure as the backbone of a city, for a city worthy of our national aspiration. And in doing so, we are demonstrating what is possible when vision meets political will. When leadership builds the enabling environment, stable power, strong institutions, transparent policies, and visionary governance, investment flows. Africa's greatest resource is not its oil, its minerals, or its fertile soil. It is its people. Across the world, Africans are excelling in technology, science, business, and the arts. They lead cooperation, laboratories, and creative industries that shape global culture and commerce. If they can thrive abroad, they can thrive even more at home. What Africa needs is not philanthropy, but unity. Once the environment is right, Africa will not only retain its talent, but also attract the world's best minds to its shores. This is why we must rethink how investment is conceived and executed on our continent. Africa is not a place of charity. Africa is a partner, a market, and a laboratory of innovation. Investment should not be about extraction, but empowerment. Not about exploitation, but collaboration. When investment is homegrown and inclusive, it becomes the lifeblood of transformation, building confidence, nurturing enterprise, and turning our demographic energies into economic power. In this regard, Africa has walked this road before. In 1980, under the Organization of African Unity, as it then was, our leaders adopted the Lagos Plan of Action, a bold Pan-African blueprint for economic self-reliance, industrialization, and regional integration. It was a visionary document that sought to place Africa's destiny in African hands. Unfortunately, it faltered not for lack of brilliance, but because of external pressures, mounting debt, the imposition of social adjustment programs, and limited political will eroded its foundation. Western prescriptions dismantled local priorities, while disunity among African nations weakened our collective resolve. Yet, the dream did not die. 4 decades later, it is being reborn to the African Continental Free Trade Area, the most ambitious project of economic integration in Africa's history. The AFTA represents the modern reawakening of the Lagos vision to build a single market for goods, services, and ideas driven by Africans, traded by Africans, and consumed by Africans. With 1.4 billion people and a combined GDP exceeding $3 trillion, Africa is no longer a peripheral actor in the global economy. It is the best epicenter of global growth. The AFTA is not just a trade agreement, it is a declaration of intent that Africa will no longer accept to be a supplier of raw materials and a dumping ground for finished goods. It is the cornerstone of Africa's second liberation. The liberation of this economy, it offers a renewed chance to industrialize certain regional value chains and negotiate global partnership from a position of strength. Through regional integration, Africa can finally replace aid with trade and dependency with dignity. Africa's future lies in the hands of Africans who believe in the power of their own ideas and ingenuity. The world has seen what Africa can do when it believes, when it builds ancient civilizations that still astonish scholars, when it produces leaders who change the course of history, and when its sons and daughters abroad lead global innovation. That same spirit of greatness still resides within us. The time has come to believe again, not in promises made abroad, but in the promise that beats within our continent's heart. When we unite our markets, harness our talents, and invest in our own future, we will not need to chase the world. The world will come chasing us. The rebels of Africa will not be written in donor reports or policy prescriptions, but in the ingenuity of our people, the integrity of our leaders, and the industriousness of our youth and women. Africa must now rise above age, rediscover her strength, and rebuild her institutions. We must remember that no one can do as much for us as we can do for ourselves. And that in this world of concrete interest, there is no free lunch and no lasting handout. Let us therefore reimagine investment, reclaim our self-reliance, and reposition Africa not as a continent waiting for benevolence, but as a continent prepared to lead. The future of global prosperity will be written here on African soil, by African hands, and for the glory of Africa and all humanity. My closing reflection, ladies and gentlemen, the emerging African leadership and investment is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is an urgent call to action. Our continent can no longer afford incremental change. The time has come for transformational change. Let me be clear, Africa's future will not be given to us. We must build it, and we must build it now. The future I see is an Africa where leadership is rooted in service and integrity, not in privilege and power. Where investment fuels inclusive growth, lifting millions from poverty into prosperity. Where youth and women stand at the forefront, driving innovation, creativity, and governance. Where infrastructure becomes the great equalizer, connecting communities and economies, and where Africa speaks with one voice, not as 55 fragmented states, but as one dynamic continent, reimagined, renewed, and resolute in purpose. The question before us is not whether Africa can rise, but whether we possess the courage to lead, the wisdom to invest, and the will to unite. History will not remember what we merely dreamed for Africa. History will remember what we did for Africa. It will judge us not by our rhetoric, but by our actions and results. Let us therefore leave this conference not with lofty words, but with firm commitments to lead differently, to invest boldly, and to believe radically in the limited potential of our continent. The time is now. The place is here. The responsibility is ours, and the future unambiguously belongs to Africa. Let me conclude by wishing you all a truly enriching and inspiring two-day engagement. May this gathering renew our collective resolve to guide, challenge, and propel African leaders and investors toward the noble task of transforming our continent from a mere land of promise to a land of fulfillment, dignity, and shared prosperity. God bless you, God bless Africa, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much. That was His Excellency Nzenwo Newsom Wike. Sir, you spoke with so much grace and so much knowledge. It's always great to hear you speak. We are so glad for all the work that you're doing in Nigeria, and we're glad to see development. And we're so, thank you. And it's always great to see the work and see what is happening in Nigeria constantly.
I mean, that was beyond a keynote. That was actually a master class in transformational leadership and decision making. Another round of applause, please, for Mr. Projects, our one and only 001. We are grateful, sir. And also, on his entourage, we would like to recognize a few distinguished guests here with us that came in with the Honorable Minister. We have here Chief Ferdinand Alabraba. A round of applause, please. Let's please give him a round of applause. We have Senator Mao Ohapunwa. A round of applause, please, for him. We have also here distinguished Senator Philip Aduda. A round of applause, please, for him. We also have distinguished Senator Magnus Abe here with us. A round of applause, please, for him. We have also with us Professor Senator Sandy Ono. A round of applause, please. And we have Honorable Ken Chikere. A round of applause, please, for us. And up next, we will be receiving a brief remark from our chairman and keynote speaker, Professor Mazi Sam Ohabunwa, OFR, MON, the founding chairman and CEO of NIMET International Pharmaceuticals, PLC. Can we please give him a round of applause?
You're not the first.
He said he called me a professor. I said, you're not the first to call me one. But I think we have a new professor today, Professor Nyesom Wike. Can we please put our hands together? He is the current professor on the stand. Your Excellencies, distinguished senators here, members of the House of Representatives, especially the representative of the Deputy Speaker, very distinguished guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased that our minister turned up and he's given us a very stirring speech. Very, very stirring, very motivating. and in sync with the foundation we had laid at the beginning. I made an opening speech and a keynote speaking about reimagining leadership, what I call power metamorphosis, and that was critical for reigniting the kind of leapfrogging we need in economic growth. And as if I set up what I call a text, a foundational thesis on what leadership was, reimagining what leadership meant. And the moment we have our former governor and FCT minister speak, you can see a combination. First, he validated the point I made in my presentation of the caliber of leadership we needed to drive Africa renaissance, to get us back to become a competitive continent, to be able to stand with the rest of the world and regain our place, both in the economic placement, in the social values, and human development indices, where we have fallen back several years. And Professor Wike did not only validate that thesis, but he gave us a case study of Nigeria, situating it with what is happening, both the kind of leadership that the current president is providing, what we call the courageous and audacious leadership, and the extrapolation in terms of policy evolution, policy implementation, in terms of moving ideas to realities, in terms of taking proposition to execution. And we have seen what is happening in the FCT as a clear manifestation of that. We can dream, but that dream must be realizable. We can project, projection must see light of the day. We can wish, but that wish must be turned into reality. And that's what our governor and current minister has presented to us today, to Africa. And he says he's giving statistics, giving verifiable evidence, since we're in FCT. So if you doubted any of the things you said, please get a guide and move around. If you knew FCT 3 years ago and you came to FCT today, you will see a whole world of difference. Like him, criticize him, the man is a man of action. You know, leadership theorists and professors tell you there are all kinds of different types of leadership styles. You have the autocratic, you have the democratic, you have the consensual, you have the laissez-faire, you have the charismatic, and different types of leadership. And they ask us in the leadership class, which is the best form of leadership? And of course, you can come with your answers. But we've always agreed that the best leadership type is the one that produced the desired result. Isn't it, professors here? That's our conclusion. That you may not be happy with people's leadership styles, but what is important is what is the result that is produced. And that's what is critical, because that result will more than pay for every inconvenience the style cost. So I want to thank you, Honorable Minister and former Governor, for this speech, which dealt extensively with the theme of the conference, Reimagine Africa Leadership and Investment. And you covered it from head to toe. There's nothing you left. So the subsequent speakers here today will see there's something derivable. I know Dr. Linus, who is a transformative leadership exponent, was shaking his head throughout the time the Professor UK was speaking, because he saw a link between what he proposes and speaks to what Wike was also expounding, and not just expanding from a theoretical academic base, but showing its practice in the economic and marketplace. So thank you, Honorable Minister, for honoring us with your distinguished presence. It's not easy to get you. I know how many conferences I've personally invited you to, but you're here today, which showed that you regarded this African platform to give us these treasuries and to give us what Africa can work with. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are set to move to the next level of this conference. He's given us enough to work on, and I believe we will chew through it today, and hopefully it will digest, and we'll be able to produce results. Thank you, Honorable Minister, and thank you for all the very distinguished class of professors and leaders that accompany our minister and give him all the support. I was speaking with a friend today that each time the minister is seated and he looks around and sees the face of these distinguished leaders, he is inspired. And I think he derives a lot of inspiration by looking at your faces. Thank you for the support you give him, because a leader needs partnership, he needs support. And leadership is never a single man's business. As he said in his speech, it's a collective. And I know everybody's playing one role or the other. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Hi again. Thank you. Our next keynote speech is by Honorable Benjamin Okalo, the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He is being represented by Honorable Oluwole Oke, who is the Chairman Committee of Foreign Affairs for the House of Representatives. We're actually going to take a pause real quick, and then we'll get right back.
Across public and Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie Kalu, PhD, CFR, is the Deputy Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representing the Bende Federal Constituency of Abia State. A seasoned legislator, legal practitioner, and international businessman, Dr. Kalu brings over 2 decades of impactful service across public and private sectors. He previously served as chairman of Bende Local Government and as executive advisor to the governor of Abia State on Millennium Development Goals and international relations. As deputy speaker and chairman of the House Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution, he leads a national effort to strengthen democracy and inclusion. Internationally, he represents Nigeria at the ECOWAS Parliament, the Pan-African Parliament, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union. An accomplished scholar with degrees from the University of Abuja, Oxford Brookes University, and the University of Calabar. Dr. Kalu is also a Harvard-trained leader and a recognized advocate for peace and development. Through the Peace in the Southeast Project and the Benjamin Kalu Foundation, he continues to promote dialogue, empowerment, and national unity. Honored with the National Award for Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, Dr. Kalu stands as a visionary leader, shaping a more inclusive and prosperous Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Deputy Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency, Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie Kalu.
Honorable Right Benjamin Kalu is going to be represented by Honorable Oluwole Oke, who is the Chairman Committee of Foreign Affairs, and he is going to come speak to us next. Round of applause, please. Thank you.
The chairman of this occasion, distinguished senators present here, permit me to stand on existing protocol My name is Oluwole Okay, representing the good people of Ijesha North, Osun State. I have the privilege to stand in for my leader, the Deputy Speaker of the House, at this occasion. The Deputy Speaker had 14 pages presentation, but because of time management, I've requested the organizers of this event to send the 14 pages note, soft copy, to persons that might be interested. We have abridged these 14 pages into fewer pages so that we can efficiently manage this occasion. Mr. Deputy Speaker's speech goes as follows. This century started with great expectations. 25 years ago, the world spoke of Africa rising. Commodity super cycles were lifting economies across our continent. From Lagos to Nairobi, mobile telecommunications was connecting millions for the first time. Democracy was spreading. And with the end of apartheid in South Africa still fresh in our collective memory, we dared to believe that a new era of peace and prosperity was finally within reach. The global economy promised to deliver. And here, in forums like this, world leaders discussed how technology, trade liberalization, and global cooperation could help lift Africa out of poverty. It was the promise of a more integrated, more just world order, a world where Africa will no longer be on the periphery, but will take its rightful place at the table. 25 years on, has this promise been fulfilled? The answer is complex. Yes, Africa today is more connected than ever before. We have the fastest growing youth population in the world. 60% of Africans are under the age of 25. Nigeria alone has attracted over $4.6 billion in tech startup investment since 2020. The Africa continent free trade area holds the promise of a single market of 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. But we have also started factoring along the new lines. On the one hand, intra-African trade is expanding. New undersea cables are connecting our cities to the global internet. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and renewable energy innovations are poised to change our way of life and work. African innovators are solving problems that the rest of the world has not yet figured out. From mobile money systems that have become global models to off-grid solar solutions, powering rural communities. On the other hand, the economies of countries in Africa remain dangerously dependent on a narrow range of commodities. Agriculture still employs over 60% of African workforce, but contributes only 15% of GDP. Manufacturing remains stuck at 10% of GDP, far below the 25% average in East Asia. Our infrastructure deficit remains steep. 130 billion to 170 billion USD annually is needed to close the gap. This deficit costs us 2% of our GDP growth every year. And perhaps, most troubling of all, Africa's share of global manufacturing value added has declined from 3% in 1970 to less than 2% today. This is the paradox of Africa 21st century so far. We have growth, but not transformation. We have opportunity, but not diversification. We have potential, but not productivity. And this is why we are gathered here today. Because the challenge before Africa is not just to grow, it is to transform. It is not just to export more. It is to diversify. It is not just to survive the global economy. It is to shape it. The pathway, the path forward from policy to action. Ladies and gentlemen, I have outlined 8 policy pathways, but pathways are useless unless we work them. And the question before Africa today is simple. Do we have the political will to act? And the question, because, let me be clear, transformation is not easy. It requires difficult choices. It requires short-term pain for a long-term gain. It requires us to industrialize from extraction to production, from subsistence agriculture to agribusiness, education of skills development, from diploma to competencies, infrastructure, internet, from deficit to connectivity, trade and regional integration, invention and technology policy, green growth policies, and institutional and government reforms. This is the presentation of my leader, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of the House. I want to wish all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Honorable Oluwole. That was amazing. Thank you so much for being able to represent the country, as well as Right Honorable that was unable to make it today. We are now going to take a tea break. I know you guys have heard amazing speeches. After this, we will be going into our panels, but we want to give you a chance to refresh, connect with some folks, be able to network, exchange LinkedIn, and just get to know each other. We have some tea and refreshments in the lobby, as well as we have bathrooms in the lobby as well. So we will see you guys in approximately 15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Philip,